My name is Eleanor. I am 78 years old, and for most of my life, I have lived in the same quiet house on Maple Street. It held the laughter of my late husband, the tiny footsteps of my only son, and the smell of cinnamon rolls I used to bake every Christmas. That house was my heart, and the memories inside it were my treasure. But on the day of my grandson's engagement party, that heart broke in a way I never thought possible. The backyard was decorated with twinkling lights, and everyone wore smiles that looked perfect on the outside. My grandson, Caleb, was introducing his fiancée to the family. I stood there with a small gift in my hands, waiting for him to turn and acknowledge me. When he finally did, his smile vanished. "You're just my father's mother," he said coldly, his voice slicing through the laughter around us. "You're not really family anymore." Every word felt like a blade. My knees trembled as whispers spread across the guests. I wanted to disappear, but instead, I smiled faintly and walked away without saying a word. No one followed me, not even my son. That night, I sat in my room staring at old photo albums. The boy who used to hug me tight, the one who cried when he scraped his knee, was gone. All that was left was a man who saw me as a burden. The next morning, while sipping my tea, I made a decision that would shake everyone's world. I called my lawyer and changed my will. I left everything, my house, my savings, even the small pieces of jewelry for my mother, to someone they all had forgotten, Caleb's ex-wife, Sarah. She had been kind to me when no one else was. She had brought me soup when I was sick, called me on my birthday, and treated me like a human being. If family is love, then she was more family than any of them. The day of the reading of the will came, months later. They all gathered, dressed in black, still playing their perfect roles after my passing. My son sat with his arm around Caleb, who looked smug and sure that my wealth would fall into his lap. Sarah sat quietly in the corner, looking uncomfortable. When the lawyer opened the folder, the room fell silent. He read my words aloud. "To my grandson Caleb, who told me I was no longer family, you were right. Family is not by blood, it's by love. That is why I leave everything to Sarah." The room erupted into chaos. Caleb jumped to his feet, his face red with rage. My son yelled, demanding explanations. Sarah sat frozen, tears rolling down her cheeks. But the lawyer kept reading, revealing every detail of my choice, every letter of my love for Sarah, and every reason why they were left with nothing. As the final line was read, the lawyer pulled out one last envelope, sealed, with Caleb's name on it. He said, "Eleanor wanted this to be read only by you, Caleb, alone." Caleb's hands shook as he took the envelope. Inside was a letter that began with words that made his jaw drop. And what he read next made him fall to his knees. What did I write in that letter that broke him so deeply? Caleb's fingers trembled as he clutched the letter, his face pale. He asked for a private room, and the lawyer guided him into the study. Everyone else waited outside, their curiosity clawing at them like wild animals. The door shut, and silence fell. Inside, Caleb opened the letter. My handwriting, neat but shaky, spread across the page. "Caleb, I loved you from the moment you were born. I rocked you to sleep when your parents fought. I held your hand when you were scared, and I prayed for you every single night. But the day you looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't family, you killed something in me. You reminded me that love is not owed. It is earned. You failed to earn mine." His eyes blurred with tears, but he kept reading. "The house you dreamed of owning is no longer yours to expect. The car you thought you would inherit has already been sold. The money you wanted to use as your own is now in the hands of someone who never asked for it but always deserved it. You should know, Caleb, I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. The next time you call someone not family, remember this day. Remember who stood by you when no one else did. It wasn't you." By the time he finished, Caleb's shoulders were shaking. He crumpled the letter in his hands, his pride shattered. He stormed out of the room, his eyes bloodshot. Everyone looked at him, waiting for answers. But all he said was, she left it all to Sarah." His voice cracked. The guests started whispering. Sarah stood in shock, her hands covering her mouth. She looked like she wanted to vanish, but the lawyer handed her the documents proving she was now the owner of everything I had. Caleb's fiancé grabbed his arm and hissed, "Is this a joke? You said she'd leave you the house." Caleb ripped his arm away, rage twisting his face. That night, Sarah drove to the house, my house. She walked through every room, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "Why me, Eleanor?" as if I could answer. She sat on my rocking chair, clutching the keys, feeling both gratitude and guilt. She had loved me like her own grandmother, even after divorcing Caleb. Meanwhile, Caleb spiraled. His fiancée left him that same night, calling him a loser. His father, my son, yelled at him for ruining everything, blaming him for the loss. Their voices echoed through the dark night as Sarah quietly locked the front door of the house that now belonged to her. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip. Everyone wanted to know why I had done what I did. Sarah received calls, messages, even threats from Caleb. But she didn't answer. She sat quietly, reading the second letter I had left for her. "Sarah, you may not understand why I chose you, but you are the only one who reminded me what kindness feels like. Take care of this home. Let it shelter you the way it sheltered me. And don't let anyone take it from you." Sarah wiped her tears and whispered, "I won't, Eleanor. I promise." But peace didn't last long. Caleb wasn't done. His pride was a dangerous thing, and the anger boiling inside him was about to explode. 3 nights later, Sarah woke to the sound of footsteps outside the house. She peered through the window and saw Caleb, his face twisted with rage, holding something in his hand. What was Caleb planning to do to the house that no longer belonged to him? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she crouched by the window, watching Caleb pace back and forth under the dim streetlight. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched, and in his hand, he gripped what looked like a crowbar. Her stomach dropped. She froze, afraid to breathe. Caleb's anger had always been quiet, but now it screamed in his movements. He glanced around, making sure no one was watching, then walked straight to the front porch. Sarah quickly reached for her phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The operator's voice was calm. "911, what's your emergency?" "There's a man trying to break into my house," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "His name is Caleb, he's my ex-husband." While she spoke, Caleb shoved the crowbar against the door, trying to pry it open. The wood groaned under the pressure. Sarah backed away, clutching the phone to her ear, whispering, "Please hurry." The sirens arrived just as Caleb managed to crack the door frame. Blue and red lights flashed across the yard, and Caleb froze like a deer caught in headlights. 2 officers jumped out, shouting, "Drop it. Step away from the door." Caleb dropped the crowbar, but lifted his hands defiantly. "This is my house," he shouted. "She stole it from me." One officer moved closer. "Sir, step back. This property is not yours." "It was supposed to be mine," Caleb screamed, his voice breaking. "She left it to me." Sarah stood at the doorway, tears rolling down her cheeks, holding the deed tightly in her hands. "No, Caleb," she said softly, her voice trembling. "She left it to me. You made her feel unloved. This is what you earned." The officers cuffed Caleb as he continued to yell, his pride crumbling into dust. The neighbors gathered, whispering and recording the scene on their phones. Caleb looked around, humiliated, his anger now mixed with shame. As the police car drove away, Sarah sat on the porch steps, shaking. She knew this wasn't the end. Caleb's rage wouldn't disappear overnight. He would try again. She could feel it in her bones. Later that night, Sarah found herself staring at Eleanor's old rocking chair. She whispered, "Why does he hate me so much?" and hugged herself tightly. Then, something caught her eye. Underneath the chair's cushion was an envelope with her name on it, written in Eleanor's handwriting. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a short note. "Sarah, I knew Caleb's pride would lead to destruction. Be strong. I have left you something hidden, something that will protect you when the time comes. Look in the attic." Her hands shook as she grabbed a flashlight and climbed the creaky attic stairs. Dust swirled in the air as she scanned the dark corners. Then she saw it, an old chest with Eleanor's initials carved into the wood. She knelt, opened it, and gasped. Inside was not only a stack of legal documents proving Sarah's ownership beyond dispute, but also something more shocking: photographs, letters, and recordings that revealed secrets Caleb never wanted anyone to know. Sarah covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God." Eleanor knew everything. At that very moment, Caleb was sitting in a holding cell, plotting his next move, unaware that the secrets buried in that attic could destroy him completely. What did Eleanor uncover about Caleb that could ruin his life forever? Sarah sat on the attic floor, her knees trembling as she sifted through the chest's contents. Each letter, each photograph, each tape recorder held pieces of a truth she didn't yet fully understand. She picked up the first photograph, Caleb, no older than 12, standing with a man Sarah didn't recognize. The man's arm was draped around Caleb's shoulders, but Caleb's face was stiff, uncomfortable. On the back, Eleanor had written in faded ink, "He swore me to silence, but I kept the proof." Sarah's hands shook harder as she played the first tape. Eleanor's voice, frail yet sharp, filled the attic. "If you are hearing this, Sarah, it means the time has come. Caleb's father, my son, tried to bury the truth, but secrets rot in the dark. This man in the photo was not his uncle, as Caleb was told. He was someone much darker. I have evidence of what happened during those years, evidence that could destroy both Caleb's pride and his father's legacy." Sarah's heart pounded. The pieces were forming a picture she wasn't sure she wanted to see. She kept listening. Caleb was a victim once, Sarah. But instead of seeking healing, he learned to become the abuser. You need to be careful. He hides his wounds with cruelty. If he ever comes for you, use these. They will stop him cold. Tears burned in Sarah's eyes. She wanted to hate Caleb, but for a moment, she saw a boy who had suffered. Still, that didn't excuse what he had become. She tucked the documents and tapes safely back into the chest. Eleanor had left her not just an inheritance, but a weapon. Meanwhile, at the county jail, Caleb sat across from his father during a tense visit. His father's eyes were cold. "You've embarrassed this family," he snapped. "All because of your grandmother's house." Caleb slammed his fist on the table. "She humiliated me. She gave everything to Sarah. I'll get it back, Dad. Watch me." His father's lip curled into a smirk. "Do what you want, but don't expect me to clean up your mess again." That night, Caleb was released on bail. The first thing he did was drive to a bar, drinking away his anger. His fiancée's voicemail was full of insults. His father wanted nothing to do with him, and the neighbors were whispering. He had only one thought left: make Sarah pay. 2 nights later, Sarah woke again to strange noises outside. She peeked through the blinds, and there he was, Caleb, lurking near the back fence this time. He wasn't alone. 2 men stood with him, shadows in the night. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They were plotting something bigger. She quickly grabbed the chest and locked herself in the bedroom. She opened the second tape Eleanor had left. The recording crackled before Eleanor's voice spoke again. "Sarah, if you are hearing this tape, he is close. Call the lawyer, he knows what to do. I left instructions that will expose everything. You will not fight him alone." Sarah's fingers dialed the lawyer's number with urgency, whispering everything she saw outside. "He's here. He's not alone. I'm scared." The lawyer's voice was calm but firm. "Stay inside. Lock every door. Don't confront them. I'll call the police." And Sarah, trust Eleanor. She prepared for this. Minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance again. Caleb and his accomplices fled before the police arrived, leaving only muddy footprints and the stench of desperation behind. Sarah was safe for now, but she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Sarah handed the police the evidence from the chest. When they looked through the files, their eyes widened. "These documents, these tapes," one officer muttered. "Do you know what this means?" Sarah shook her head. "What does it mean?" The officer looked at her gravely. "It means Caleb could go to prison for a very long time if this gets out." Sarah's breath caught. She held the chest tighter. She didn't just have Eleanor's inheritance. She had control over Caleb's future. But that power came with danger. Because when Caleb learned she had the chest, he swore to himself that he would do anything, to take it back. How far would Caleb go to reclaim what he thinks is his? Sarah barely slept. Every creak of the old house made her heart jump. The chest sat beside her bed like a silent guardian, but she knew it was also a target. Caleb wasn't the type to give up. He had inherited his father's arrogance, his anger, and his belief that everything belonged to him. The next morning, Sarah drove to the lawyer's office with the chest in the back seat. The lawyer, Mr. Thompson, an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes, was waiting for her. He motioned her into his office and closed the door behind them. "Sarah, Eleanor trusted me with everything," he said, his voice steady. "This chest, it's more than evidence. It's the key to protecting you. But it's also dangerous. If Caleb gets his hands on it, he'll twist the narrative and destroy the truth." Sarah set the chest on his desk. "What exactly is in here that's so powerful?" Mr. Thompson opened one of the envelopes and scanned the documents. His eyes hardened. These prove financial fraud, property manipulation, and even physical abuse that Caleb covered up during his first marriage. Eleanor gathered this over the years. She was planning to confront him, but her health failed too soon. Sarah swallowed hard. She must have known he'd come after me. "She knew," the lawyer said, "which is why she gave you legal authority to expose this when necessary. If Caleb tries anything, we'll bury him with the truth." Just as Sarah was about to respond, Mr. Thompson's secretary rushed into the room, breathless. "Someone's outside, demanding to see Sarah. He's angry. Security is holding him back." Sarah's stomach sank. "It's Caleb, isn't it?" The lawyer nodded grimly. "Stay here." Through the blinds, Sarah saw Caleb storming across the parking lot, shouting her name. His eyes burned with hatred, his voice cracking as he yelled, "You think you can take what's mine? You think you can ruin me with lies?" Security dragged him back to his car, but not before he pointed at the office window and snarled, "You'll regret this, Sarah. You'll regret crossing me." That night, Sarah returned home shaken. She locked every door, every window, and set her phone beside her bed. Sleep came in short bursts, interrupted by nightmares of Caleb breaking in. At dawn, Sarah walked into the kitchen to make coffee and froze. A single note was lying on the counter. She hadn't put it there. Her hands shook as she opened it. "You can't hide behind her will forever. The house, the money, the truth, it's all mine. Hand it over or I'll take it." No signature, but she knew it was Caleb. Fear clawed at her chest, but something inside her, something Eleanor had nurtured, started to harden. She was done being scared. Sarah picked up the phone and called the police again, handing them the note. She also gave them copies of the documents and tapes, keeping the originals in a safe only she and Mr. Thompson knew about. The police promised to increase patrols around her house, but Sarah knew that wouldn't stop Caleb. Later that night, she sat in Eleanor's rocking chair, whispering, "I don't know if I'm strong enough." As if in answer, the chair creaked gently, and she remembered Eleanor's words. "Be strong. I have left you something that will protect you." The following day, Sarah climbed back into the attic to search again. Hidden behind a loose plank, she found a small box containing a key and another letter. "Sarah, this key unlocks a storage unit downtown. Inside, you will find the final piece of protection I prepared. Use it only when the danger is greatest." Sarah gripped the key tightly. Whatever Eleanor had hidden, it was her trump card. She decided to retrieve it first thing in the morning, but she never got the chance. That night, as rain hammered the roof, Sarah heard the back door creak open. Her breath caught. She wasn't imagining it, someone was inside. She grabbed the chest, clutching it to her chest, and whispered, "Please, Eleanor, protect me." A shadow moved across the hallway. Caleb's voice, low and menacing, echoed through the house. "You can't hide from me, Sarah. Not tonight." What was Caleb planning to do now that he was inside the house? The rain pounded louder as if the sky itself knew danger, had stepped inside. Sarah pressed her back against the bedroom door, clutching the chest like a lifeline. Her breaths were shallow, her hands clammy. Caleb's footsteps were slow, deliberate, and terrifyingly calm as they creaked across the wooden floor. "Where are you hiding, Sarah?" His voice sang mockingly. "You think Grandma's little secrets will save you? No one's coming this time." Sarah's eyes darted around the room. The window. If she could climb out, maybe she'd make it to the neighbors. But the thought of leaving the chest behind made her stomach twist. She knew Eleanor's evidence was the only thing standing between her and destruction. Suddenly, Caleb's voice dropped lower, almost a growl. "You don't deserve what she left you. You were just an ex-wife. You're nothing." Sarah's fear began to turn into something else. Anger. She had spent too long running from his wrath. Not anymore. She quietly dialed 911, whispering, "There's an intruder in my house. Please hurry." She left the line open, hoping the operator could hear everything. The bedroom doorknob twisted violently. Sarah jumped back, heart slamming against her ribs. "Open the door, Sarah," Caleb hissed. "You can't keep me out." The door shook as he slammed against it again and again. Sarah backed toward the window, but then she remembered the key Eleanor had left. The storage unit, whatever was inside, could end this nightmare. If she survived tonight, she would find it. With one final crash, the door splintered open. Caleb stood there, rain dripping from his hair, eyes wild. "Give me the chest," he demanded. Sarah gripped it tighter. "No." Caleb lunged, and Sarah swung the heavy wooden chest with all her strength. It struck his shoulder, sending him stumbling. She darted past him, barefoot, running down the hallway as he roared behind her. Lightning flashed, illuminating the fear on her face and the rage on his. She reached the front door just as police sirens wailed outside. Caleb froze for a split second, his eyes darting between Sarah and the flashing lights. With a snarl, he bolted through the back, disappearing into the stormy night. 2 officers rushed in, guns drawn. "Ma'am, are you okay?" one shouted. Sarah nodded weakly, clutching the chest. "He was here." "Caleb." He tried to. "We saw him running," the officer interrupted. "We'll find him." But deep down, Sarah knew Caleb wouldn't stop. Not until he destroyed everything Eleanor had protected. The next morning, with the storm gone but her nerves still raw, Sarah drove to the storage unit with the key Eleanor had left. The facility was nearly empty, silent except for the echo of her footsteps. She unlocked the metal door, her hands trembling. Inside was a single safe. She used the key to open it, and what she found made her gasp so loudly it echoed through the space. Stacks of money, far more than she had ever imagined, sat neatly in bundles. Alongside it were sealed envelopes addressed to law enforcement, the media, and Caleb's former business partners. Each one contained copies of the evidence that could end Caleb's life as he knew it. At the very bottom was a small velvet box. Sarah opened it to find Eleanor's wedding ring and a note that read, "This is your shield, Sarah. Use the money to protect yourself. Use the letters to destroy him if he comes for you again. And wear this ring, not because you need protection, but because you've always been my true family." Sarah's hands shook as she slipped the ring onto her finger. Tears blurred her vision, but strength filled her chest. She finally understood Eleanor's plan. Every step had been to give Sarah both the power to defend herself and the means to survive. But as she turned to leave the storage unit, her blood ran cold. Caleb stood at the entrance, drenched in sweat and rain, eyes burning with something darker than rage. "I told you," he said in a low voice, blocking her exit. "You can't hide behind her forever." Sarah clutched the ring and whispered, "You have no idea what you're up against." What will Sarah do now that Caleb has cornered her with nowhere to run? Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears as she stood frozen inside the storage unit. Caleb's shadow loomed larger with each step he took toward her, his eyes gleaming like a predator's. The metal walls echoed his voice, sharp and venomous. "You think a few pieces of paper and a dead woman's ring make you strong?" Caleb sneered, stepping closer. "Give me the chest. Give me the money. Or I'll make sure no one ever finds you." Sarah's fingers tightened around the velvet box and the stack of letters. Her fear trembled inside her, but beneath it, a fire sparked. She remembered Eleanor's words. Use the letters to destroy him if he comes for you again. With a steady voice she didn't know she had, Sarah said, Eleanor left everything to me because she saw through you. You can scare me, Caleb, but you can't erase the truth. And if you hurt me, these letters will reach every person who can bury you. For a split second, Caleb hesitated. His jaw clenched, his breath uneven. Then, like a switch flipping, his face twisted into a snarl. He lunged forward, grabbing Sarah's arm and yanking her toward him. The bundle of letters fell to the floor, scattering across the concrete. You think you're brave now, he growled, his grip tightening. We'll see how brave you are when no one comes to save you. Sarah's other hand groped for something, anything, and found the heavy lock from the safe. With all her strength, she swung it against his head. Caleb stumbled back, cursing, blood trickling from a cut above his eyebrow. Seizing the moment, Sarah grabbed the scattered letters and ran for the door. But Caleb was quick. He caught her ankle, sending her sprawling. The letters fluttered out of her hands again like dying birds. You're not leaving, he roared, dragging her back. His voice cracked, not just with anger, but desperation. It's mine, Sarah. It was always supposed to be mine. Sarah kicked with all her strength, her foot connecting with his ribs. He let go, gasping. She scrambled to her feet, clutching one envelope, marked, to the district attorney, and held it up like a weapon. If you touch me again, this goes public, she hissed. Everything Eleanor uncovered about you, your fraud, your abuse, your lies. It will destroy you. Caleb's face twisted with something between fear and fury. For the first time, she saw the boy Eleanor had described, hurt, lost, and hiding behind cruelty. But it lasted only a moment before the darkness returned. You wouldn't dare, he spat. Sarah stared him down, her voice firm. Try me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Caleb's eyes widened. He looked from Sarah to the approaching sound of salvation and, with a final glare, bolted out the back of the storage facility. Sarah collapsed against the cold metal wall, tears streaking her face. When the police arrived, she handed them the letters and the story spilled out. They promised to pursue Caleb, but she knew he would stay in the shadows, plotting his next move. Back at the house, Sarah placed the ring on Eleanor's photo and whispered, I'm not afraid anymore. She slept that night with the chest beside her, knowing the storm wasn't over, but she was stronger than she had ever been. The next morning, she received a call from Mr. Thompson. His voice was urgent. Sarah, you need to come to my office right away. There's something Eleanor left that I didn't see before. Sarah's heart skipped. What is it? The lawyer paused, his tone heavy. It's a sealed document that changes everything, and it mentions Caleb by name. As Sarah drove to the office, dread mixed with curiosity. Eleanor's secrets had already turned her world upside down. What could possibly be left to reveal? When she arrived, Mr. Thompson handed her the sealed envelope. Sarah opened it slowly, her breath catching as she read the first line. Her knees nearly gave out. Inside was a confession, a revelation so shocking it not only explained Caleb's hatred but also exposed the darkest truth about their family's past. What secret did Eleanor hide that will change everything Sarah thought she knew? Sarah's hands shook as she read Eleanor's letter, her vision blurring with every word. It was a confession, written with the raw honesty of someone who knew time was running out. Sarah, there is one truth I never spoke, not to Caleb, not to my son, not to anyone. Caleb is not just my grandson. He is also the child of my late husband's betrayal. Your ex-husband's father, my husband, had an affair with a woman who worked at his company. When that woman abandoned the baby, I took Caleb in to protect my son's pride. I raised him as my grandson because I couldn't bear to destroy the family. But he was never my son's child. And when he found out the truth years ago, his hatred for me grew like poison. Sarah's chest tightened as she kept reading. Caleb blames me for the lies, for the silence, for the shame. Instead of facing the truth, he turned his pain into anger. I loved him as my own, but he never forgave me. This is why I left everything to you, Sarah. You never lied. You never betrayed. You loved without conditions. Keep this secret only if it protects you. Reveal it if it destroys him before he destroys you. Sarah dropped the letter onto the lawyer's desk, her breath trembling. She raised him knowing he wasn't her son's child. She carried that secret her whole life. Mr. Thompson leaned back, eyes heavy. This explains his rage. He built his life on a lie, and he thinks you're the reason he lost everything. Sarah, this secret, if it comes out, will ruin him completely. But it might also put you in more danger. Before Sarah could respond, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She answered cautiously. Sarah, Caleb's voice came through, low and chilling. You found it, didn't you? The letter. The truth. Her throat tightened. Caleb, you need help. Stop this before it's too late. His laugh was hollow. Too late? It's already too late. You think you've won because of her lies?
No.
I'll take back what's mine. And when I do, no letter, no secret, no memory of her will stop me. The call ended abruptly. Sarah's hands trembled, but the fear was quickly replaced by determination. She looked at Mr. Thompson and said, We're going to use this. Eleanor wanted me to survive. I'm not hiding anymore. That night, Sarah prepared. She made copies of the confession, sent them to trusted friends, the police, and even to a reporter Eleanor had corresponded with years ago. If anything happened to her, the truth would go public. As she sat in the rocking chair, the house eerily quiet, she clutched Eleanor's ring and whispered, I'll protect what you gave me. I promise. Then bang. A loud crash shattered the silence. The front door swung open violently. Caleb stormed in, his face twisted with desperation and fury. You couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you? He growled, stepping closer with a glint of something metallic in his hand. Sarah's heart pounded, but she stood up, gripping the envelope tightly. This ends tonight, Caleb. I know the truth. The world will know it too if you take one more step. Caleb's eyes darkened, his voice trembling. You think you can threaten me? You think a piece of paper will stop me? Lightning lit up the room, revealing the weapon in his hand, a knife. Sarah backed away slowly, clutching the letter like a shield. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Someone had heard the commotion. But would they arrive in time? Caleb raised the knife, his rage boiling over. Say goodbye, Sarah. Will Sarah survive this final confrontation, or will Caleb's fury end it all before the truth comes out? The storm outside howled, as if it knew the violence brewing inside the house. Caleb's grip tightened around the knife, his eyes wild with the kind of rage that consumes reason. Sarah's back hit the wall, but she didn't drop the letter. Instead, she held it higher, her voice steady despite the terror in her chest. Eleanor told me everything, she said firmly. You're not who you think you are, Caleb. All this hate, all this anger, you've been living a lie, and it's killing you. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, confusion, maybe even regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by fury. He lunged forward. Sarah ducked to the side, knocking over a lamp that shattered on the floor. The sudden darkness, broken only by flashes of lightning, turned the living room into a battlefield. Caleb's voice was a snarl. You think you're safe because she loved you? She loved me too, and she lied to me every single day. You're just like her. Sarah reached for the chest near the sofa, opening it with trembling hands. Inside were the recordings, the photos, the documents, everything Eleanor had gathered. She grabbed the small voice recorder, clicked play, and Eleanor's voice filled the room. Caleb, if you're hearing this, it means you've let your anger destroy you. You were loved. You were saved.
But you chose hatred.
Sarah is not your enemy. The real enemy is the lie you refuse to face. Caleb froze, the knife shaking in his hand. His jaw quivered as Eleanor's words echoed through the room. She lied to me, he muttered, his voice cracking. She made me feel worthless. Sarah's voice softened, though her body trembled. No, Caleb. She saved you. She took you in when no one else would. And now you're destroying the only thing she tried to protect. The sirens grew louder. Caleb's eyes darted to the window, panic creeping in. The flashing lights were just a block away. He turned back to Sarah, his voice desperate. Give me the letter.
Give me everything.
I can still fix this. Sarah stood her ground, clutching the letter to her chest.
No.
You can't fix it by destroying me. You can only fix it by facing the truth. Caleb's face twisted, torn between rage and despair. He raised the knife again, but the front door burst open. Police officers flooded the room, shouting commands. Drop the weapon.
Now.
Caleb hesitated, his breathing ragged. For a moment, Sarah thought he might surrender. Then, with a guttural yell, he threw the knife down and dropped to his knees, hands on his head. The officers moved in, cuffing him as he screamed, "It was supposed to be mine. She was supposed to love me." His cries echoed as they dragged him out into the storm. Sarah sank to the floor, shaking but alive. The letter fell from her hands, but the words burned in her mind. She knew the fight wasn't truly over. Caleb would face trial, and the secrets Eleanor left would come to light for everyone to see. The next morning, Sarah stood on the porch as the sun rose. The air smelled of rain and renewal. She held Eleanor's ring, whispering, "It's almost over. You gave me the strength to survive this." But just as she began to feel a fragile sense of peace, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number again. With trembling fingers, she answered. A voice she didn't recognize, deep and cold, said, "You think Caleb was your only problem? He wasn't working alone. And now we're coming for what belongs to us." The line went dead. Sarah's heart dropped. She clutched the ring tighter, knowing this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something much darker. Who are the new players stepping out of the shadows, and what claim do they have on Eleanor's inheritance? The call echoed in Sarah's ears long after it ended, its chilling words tightening around her heart like a noose. We're coming for what belongs to us. She stood frozen on the porch, the morning sunlight failing to warm her trembling body.
Who were they?
What else had Eleanor kept hidden? Determined to find answers, Sarah immediately called Mr. Thompson. "Someone else is involved," she said, her voice urgent. "I got a call. They know about the inheritance." The lawyer's tone hardened. "Stay inside, Sarah. I'll come to you. Don't open the door for anyone." Within an hour, he arrived with new files Eleanor had entrusted to him but had only recently been unsealed after Caleb's arrest. Together, they sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the documents. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the first page. It was a legal settlement dated decades ago, involving the woman who had abandoned Caleb at birth. Her name was Margaret Blake, Mr. Thompson explained. Eleanor paid her to stay away. But it seems she had other children, half-siblings to Caleb, who now believe they have a claim to Eleanor's estate. Sarah's chest tightened. Half-siblings? They're the ones who called me. Most likely, he said grimly. And if they know about the inheritance, they might not stop at threats. That night, Sarah barely slept. Every sound outside made her jump. At midnight, headlights swept across the house. She peered through the curtains and saw a black SUV idling by the curb. The engine purred for a long, tense minute before it drove off into the night. By morning, Sarah knew she couldn't stay in fear. She packed the chest, the ring, and every document Eleanor had left, locking them in the trunk of her car. Mr. Thompson advised her to attend the upcoming court hearing, where Caleb would face charges and the truth about his lineage would be revealed publicly. It would be dangerous, but it was the only way to end the fight. The day of the hearing arrived. The courtroom buzzed with reporters, neighbors, and curious onlookers. Caleb was brought in, shackled, his once proud face now hollow with anger and defeat. Across the room sat Sarah, holding Eleanor's ring and the sealed letters. When the judge asked if there was any further evidence, Sarah stood and handed over Eleanor's confession. The courtroom fell silent as the letter was read aloud, revealing Caleb's true parentage, the decades of lies, and the real reason he was not entitled to the inheritance. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Caleb's face contorted with rage, and he shouted, "She's lying. She's ruining me." But the guards restrained him. Then, just as the judge was about to deliver the final ruling, the courtroom doors swung open. Two strangers, a man and a woman, walked in, their presence radiating hostility. They introduced themselves as Margaret Blake's children, claiming they were entitled to a share of the inheritance. Gasps filled the room. Sarah stood her ground. "You abandoned Eleanor. You abandoned Caleb. You don't deserve anything she built." The siblings glared at her. "You're not blood," the man spat. "You have no right to anything either." But the judge's gavel slammed down. "The will is clear. Eleanor's estate legally belongs to Sarah. This court will honor her wishes." The siblings stormed out, whispering threats under their breath. Caleb sat silent, his head bowed, realizing he had lost everything. Not just the inheritance, but the last shred of family he had left. After the hearing, Sarah walked out of the courthouse with the sunlight warming her face. For the first time in months, she felt peace. Eleanor's love had triumphed over the darkness. The estate was safe, the truth was known, and Sarah finally felt the weight lift from her shoulders. That night, she sat in the rocking chair, staring at the ring on her finger. "We did it, Eleanor," she whispered. "They can't hurt us anymore." But as she closed her eyes, her phone buzzed with one final message from an unknown number. "This isn't over." Sarah smiled faintly, gripping the ring. She was no longer the woman who lived in fear. She was the woman who survived everything. And if they came for her again, she would be ready. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive, and remember, family isn't just blood. It's love, loyalty, and the strength to stand your ground.